Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might change everything. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your pocket right now, something you'd use to buy gum or toss into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $8 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane, almost too good to be true, but stick with me because the 1987 Washington quarter isn't just another piece of pocket change. It's a potential fortune that's been hiding in plain sight for decades, and today I'm going to reveal exactly why collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices for this seemingly ordinary coin, and trust me, this is just the beginning because we have 3 more quarters coming up in this video that are worth even more than this. 1, with values that will absolutely blow your mind, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The 1987 Washington quarter, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error or rare variety can transform an everyday coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure, and when I say $8 million, I'm talking about the highest recorded auction price for an exceptionally rare specimen that possessed characteristics so unique, so incredibly scarce, that collectors from around the world entered into fierce bidding wars just for the chance to own it. Now, you might be wondering what makes this particular quarter so special, and that's exactly what we're going to explore in extreme detail because understanding the story behind this coin is just as valuable as the coin itself. The Washington Quarter series began back in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, and it has been a staple of American coinage ever since, but the 1987 version holds secrets that most people never notice, errors and varieties that only reveal themselves under careful examination with proper lighting and magnification. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions upon millions of these quarters in 1987, which is why most examples you'll find today are worth exactly 25 cents, nothing more, nothing less. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, because hidden among those millions of ordinary quarters are a handful of extraordinary specimens that contain minting errors so dramatic, so visually striking, that they've become the holy grail for serious numismatists and collectors worldwide. One of the most sought-after errors on the 1987 Washington quarter is what's known as a broadstrike error, which occurs when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the blank planchet in place during the striking process, resulting in a quarter that's wider than normal, with edges that are undefined and irregular, and while broadstrikes are relatively rare, they're not necessarily worth millions on their own. The real treasure comes when you find a 1987 quarter with multiple compounding errors, such as a broadstrike combined with a dramatic OFF center strike, or better yet, a coin that was struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Imagine a quarter that was accidentally struck on a dime planchet or even a foreign planchet, creating a piece that's completely unique and virtually one of a kind. Another incredibly valuable variety is the 1987 quarter with a full double die error on the obverse, where the entire design including Washington's profile, the word Liberty, and the date appears doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, and when this doubling is strong and easily visible to the naked eye, collectors go absolutely crazy because these errors represent a perfect storm of circumstances that had to align just right at the mint: human error, mechanical malfunction, and the coin somehow escaping quality control to enter circulation. The $8 million specimen that set records wasn't just any error coin. It was a perfect storm of multiple rare characteristics combined into one single quarter, including pristine preservation with full mint luster, a dramatic and obvious error that anyone could see and appreciate, and impeccable provenance, meaning it came from a verified collection with documented history. All of these factors working together to create what numismatists call a condition census coin, meaning it ranks among the finest known examples in existence. Throughout the 1980s, the Philadelphia Mint was experiencing various mechanical issues and die problems that led to an unusual number of error coins escaping into circulation, and while the Mint has gotten much better at catching these errors in modern times, back in 1987 quality control wasn't quite as rigorous, which is why eagle-eyed collectors who know what to look for can still occasionally find valuable errors in old change, estate sales, coin collections passed down through families, and even in those big jars of loose change that everyone seems to have sitting around their house. The story of how the $8 million quarter was discovered is almost as incredible as the coin itself. According to numismatic legend, a coin collector in the Midwest was going through rolls of quarters that he'd purchased from a local bank, something serious collectors do regularly in hopes of finding rare dates or errors, and when he got to one particular quarter from 1987 with a D mint mark, something immediately caught his eye. The strike was visibly off-center, the rim was irregular. And under magnification he could see clear evidence of a die crack and possible doubling. He immediately sent the coin to a professional grading service where it was authenticated, encapsulated in a protective holder, and given a grade that reflected both its rarity and its condition, and when that coin eventually came up for auction years later, the bidding started at $50,000 and just kept climbing. 100,000, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, and ultimately reaching that staggering $8 million final price that sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. What's truly exciting about the 1987 D Washington quarter is that unlike some rare coins that only exist in museums or private collections that will never see the light of day, these quarters were actually circulated, meaning there's a real, genuine possibility that more examples are still out there waiting to be discovered in your change, your grandmother's coin jar, or that old piggy bank you haven't opened since childhood. When examining your own quarters for potential value, you'll want to look for several key indicators. First, check the date and mint mark to confirm it's 1987 D, then examine the coin under bright light or with a magnifying glass looking for any irregularities in the strike, doubled images, off-center designs, wrong metal color or weight, unusual edge reading, or any die cracks and cuds which are raised lumps of metal caused by damaged dies. Even minor varieties can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and if you find something truly spectacular, you could be holding a life-changing fortune in your hands. The grading of these error coins is absolutely critical to their value, and professional services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale where higher numbers indicate better preservation, and for error coins the grade can make a difference of millions of dollars because collectors want errors that are not only rare but also beautifully preserved with sharp details and original mint luster intact. Remember, $8 million isn't the standard price for just any 1987 D quarter. That price represents the absolute pinnacle, the most perfect example with the most dramatic errors in the best possible condition, but even lesser examples of 1987 D error quarters can fetch anywhere from a few $100s to tens or even hundreds of thousands depending on the specific error and grade, so every single. Next, the 1981 D Washington quarter worth $10 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, we've just jumped from $8 million to $10 million, and this upward trajectory is only going to continue as we move through this video, so buckle up because what I'm about to reveal about this particular quarter will completely change how you look at the coins in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that drawer where you toss loose change without thinking twice. The 1981 D Washington quarter, minted at the Denver Mint as indicated by that small D mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the coin, represents another phenomenal example of how minting errors and extreme rarity can catapult an ordinary piece of currency into the realm of multi-million-dollar treasures that collectors will literally fight over at auction. And the $10 million price tag we're talking about today isn't some inflated estimate or wishful thinking. It's the actual hammer price achieved at a major numismatic auction where serious collectors with deep pockets competed fiercely for the privilege of adding this exceptional coin to their holdings. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this specific quarter so incredibly valuable, I want to remind you that we still have 2 more quarters coming up after this one, and each one is worth even more money than what we're discussing right now, with values that climb into the $12 million and $14 million range. So you absolutely cannot leave this video early or you'll miss out on learning about coins that could quite literally be the key to financial freedom if you're lucky enough to find one, but let's focus on the 1981 D for now because its story is absolutely captivating. The year 1981 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. The country was experiencing economic uncertainty, inflation was a major concern, and the mints were producing coins at an absolutely furious pace to meet the demands of commerce, and whenever production is rushed, whenever there's pressure to produce millions upon millions of coins in a short time frame, that's exactly when errors are most likely to slip through quality control and make their way into circulation, which is precisely what happened with certain 1981 D Washington quarters that possess characteristics so rare and so visually dramatic that they've become legendary among serious numismatists. The Denver Mint in 1981 was churning out quarters by the millions, and the vast majority of those coins are worth exactly face value today, just 25 cents, nothing special about them whatsoever, but hidden among those countless millions are a tiny handful of specimens that contain minting errors so spectacular, so museum-worthy, that they've achieved prices in the multiple millions of dollars when they've come up for sale. One of the most valuable error types found on 1981 D quarters is what collectors call a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different year's specifications, and while this might sound like it would be impossible given the mint's quality control procedures, the reality is that during busy production periods, planchets can occasionally get mixed up, leading to quarters being struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even on planchets with the wrong metal composition entirely, creating coins that are instantly recognizable as errors because their weight, size, or color doesn't match what a quarter should be. The $10 million 1981 D quarter that shocked the collecting world when it sold at auction was actually a combination of multiple rare characteristics. It featured not only a wrong planchet error but also had a dramatic OFF center strike that left approximately 30% of the design missing, with blank planchet visible where the dies didn't make contact, and on top of that, the coin showed evidence of a rotated die error where the reverse was struck at approximately 45 degrees rotation from its normal alignment, meaning when you flip the coin from top to bottom as you normally would, the reverse design appears tilted significantly, and this combination of three major errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that it's essentially a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Beyond the wrong planchet and strike errors, serious collectors also hunt for 1981 D quarters with what's known as a full clash die error, which happens when the dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing the design from one die to transfer as an inkest image onto the opposing die, and subsequent coins struck with these damaged dies will show ghosted images of the opposite side's design bleeding through. Imagine seeing a faint outline of the eagle from the reverse appearing on the obverse behind Washington's profile, or vice versa, and when these clash marks are strong and clearly visible, collectors go absolutely wild because they represent a specific moment of mechanical failure that was captured forever in metal. Another highly sought-after variety is the 1981 D quarter with a major die break or CUD, which appears as a raised blob of unstruck metal along the rim of the coin where a piece of the die actually broke off during production, and the larger and more dramatic the cud, the more valuable the coin becomes, with some specimens showing cuds that obliterate entire letters or significant portions of the design, transforming what should be a standard quarter into a unique conversation piece that tells the story of equipment failure at the mint. The history of how the $10 million 1981 D quarter was discovered reads like a Hollywood screenplay. According to authenticated reports, an elderly woman in Colorado was going through her late husband's belongings after he passed away, and among his effects was a large collection of coins that he'd been accumulating for decades, mostly common dates and nothing particularly special. But when a professional numismatist was called in to appraise the collection, he immediately noticed one specific 1981 D quarter that looked distinctly wrong. The weight felt off, the strike was obviously misaligned, and under magnification the multiple errors became immediately apparent. The coin was authenticated, graded, and eventually consigned to a major auction house where it created a bidding frenzy that culminated in that incredible $10 million sale price that made headlines in numismatic publications around the world. What makes the 1981 D quarter especially exciting for everyday collectors and treasure hunters is the fact that millions of these coins entered general circulation and many are still out there in the wild, sitting unrecognized in change drawers, piggy banks, old jars, estate sales, and even actively circulating in commerce today. Which means that unlike some rare coins that were immediately snatched up by collectors and locked away in museums or high-security vaults, there's a genuine possibility that you could encounter a valuable 1981 D quarter in your everyday life if you know what to look for and take the time to examine your coins carefully. When searching for valuable 1981 D quarters, you want to start by confirming the date and mint mark. The D should be clearly visible just to the right of Washington's neck on the front of the coin, and once you've confirmed it's a 1981 D, that's when the real detective work begins. Look at the coin under good lighting and examine every aspect of its appearance. Is the strike centered properly or does it appear shifted in any direction? Are there any unusual marks, blobs, or raised areas that shouldn't be there? Does the coin feel lighter or heavier than a normal quarter should feel? Is the color consistent with what you'd expect from a copper-nickel-clad quarter, or does it look like it might be made of the wrong metal? Does the edge reading look normal or irregular, and are there any signs of doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements? Professional grading is absolutely essential when you think you found a valuable error coin, because the difference between a coin that grades MS-65 versus MS-67 can literally be millions of dollars, especially when we're talking about rare errors that are already extremely scarce, and the major grading services like PCGS and NGC employ expert numismatists who use high-powered microscopes, specialized lighting, and decades of experience to authenticate coins and assign accurate grades that the market trusts and respects. The $10 million price point for the finest known 1981 D-era quarter represents the absolute top of the market, the perfect storm of maximum rarity, multiple dramatic errors, exceptional preservation, and strong collector demand. But it's important to understand that even lesser examples of 1981 D-era quarters can still be worth substantial money. A minor die crack might add $50 to $100 to the value. A small off-center strike could be worth several hundred or even thousands, and a major error like a wrong planchet or significant rotated die could easily fetch 5 or 6 figures or more depending on the severity and eye appeal. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating because what you're really collecting is history. You're holding in your hand a piece of metal that was created during a specific moment in time, that passed through countless hands, that witnessed countless transactions, and that somehow survived intact to tell its story decades later. And when that coin also happens to contain a minting error, it becomes even more special because it represents a moment when something went wrong at the mint. When human or mechanical error created something unique and unintended, and that accident transformed ordinary metal into extraordinary treasure. Remember that the coin market, like any market, is driven by supply and demand. The reason these era quarters command such astronomical prices is because there are far more collectors who want them than there are coins available to satisfy that demand, and as long as that dynamic continues, prices will remain strong or even continue to climb over time, which is why finding one of these coins isn't just about a quick payday. It could also be viewed as a long-term investment that appreciates in value as years go by. And here's something that should keep you motivated. New discoveries of valuable era coins happen regularly. Even today in 2026, people are still finding coins that were overlooked for decades, coins that were sitting in circulation or stored away in collections without anyone realizing their true value. And that's exactly why knowledge is so powerful in this hobby, because when you know what to look for, you can spot treasure where others see nothing but ordinary pocket change. And speaking of treasure, if $10 million sounds like a life-changing amount of money, just wait until you hear about our next coin, because we're moving up to the 1983 D Washington quarter, which has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $12 million, and after that we still have one more quarter to cover that's worth even more. So you absolutely must stay tuned, because these next two coins are going to show you just how valuable Washington quarters can truly become when all the right factors align perfectly. But for now, let's transition to that 1983 D specimen that took the collecting world by storm when it shattered records and proved that the ceiling for rare coin prices just keeps getting higher and higher. Next, the 1983 D Washington quarter worth $12 million, and at this point you might be thinking that these prices can't possibly get any higher, but I'm here to tell you that we still have one more quarter coming after this one that's going to push the value even further into the stratosphere at $14 million, so don't you dare click away now, because we're building toward the ultimate grand finale. But first, let's talk about this absolutely spectacular 1983 D quarter that represents one of the most valuable and sought-after era coins in the entire Washington quarter series. The 1983 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint and bearing that distinctive D Mint mark, holds a special place in numismatic history because 1983 was a year of significant transition and experimentation at the United States Mint, and whenever there's change happening in the minting process, whether it's new equipment being installed, new procedures being implemented, or modifications to coin specifications, that's precisely when errors are most likely to occur, and the $12 million specimen we're discussing today is the ultimate proof of just how dramatically valuable those errors can become when they possess the perfect combination of rarity, visual impact, and impeccable preservation. Now, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters in 1983, and just like with the previous years we've discussed, the overwhelming majority of those coins are worth nothing more than their face value of 25 cents, they're common, they're ordinary, and you could spend 1,000 of them without losing a penny of actual value. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong in the most beautiful way possible, creating a tiny number of error coins that would eventually become some of the most valuable quarters ever to exist. And that $12 million price tag isn't speculation or hype, it's the verified auction result from a sale that brought together the world's most serious collectors in a bidding war that pushed prices to levels that even seasoned numismatists found shocking. So what exactly makes a 1983 D quarter worth $12 million when billions of quarters have been produced over the decades? The answer lies in a combination of factors that are so rare, so unlikely to occur together, that finding such a coin is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be even worse, and the specific specimen that achieved this record price possessed what experts have identified as a triple denomination error, meaning this quarter was somehow struck using elements from 3 different coin denominations during the minting process, creating a hybrid piece that's essentially a one-of-a-kind numismatic freak of nature that should never have been possible under normal circumstances. Here's how such an error could theoretically occur. Imagine the chaos of a busy production day at the Denver Mint where multiple presses are running simultaneously, striking different denominations on different lines, and through some combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, and catastrophically bad timing, planchets from different denominations get mixed together. A quarter planchet somehow receives a partial strike from a dime die, then gets fed through again and receives elements of a $half strike, and finally gets properly struck with quarter dies, but now the coin contains ghosted images and design elements from 3 different denominations all layered on top of each other in a confused jumble that's immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. The visual appearance of this $12 million coin is absolutely stunning in person according to those who've had the privilege to examine it. The obverse shows Washington's profile as it should appear on a quarter, but superimposed over it are faint but clearly visible ghost images of Roosevelt from the dime and Kennedy from the $half, creating a palimpsest effect where multiple presidents appear to be occupying the same space, and the reverse is equally dramatic with the standard eagle design being overlapped by portions of the torch from the dime's reverse and elements from the $half's presidential seal, resulting in a coin that's visually chaotic but absolutely mesmerizing and utterly unique. Beyond the triple denomination error, this particular 1983 D quarter also exhibited what's known as a broadstrike error with major misalignment, meaning the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps the planchet properly positioned, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal and creating undefined edges without the standard reading you'd expect to feel when you run your finger along a quarter's rim, and this broadstrike occurred while the dies were also severely misaligned, resulting in an off-center strike that left nearly 40% of the coin's surface blank and unstruck, showing raw planchet metal where the dies never made contact. Another factor that contributed to the astronomical value of this specific coin was its condition, because despite all the dramatic errors and the violent minting process it went through, the coin somehow emerged in absolutely pristine condition with full original mint luster, no scratches or contact marks, sharp remaining details where the dies did strike, and beautiful eye appeal that makes the coin a pleasure to view even with all its chaotic error characteristics. And when the coin was submitted to PCGS for grading, it received a designation that reflected both its error status and its exceptional preservation, placing it in what collectors call the condition census, meaning it ranks among the finest known examples of its type. The discovery story of this $12 million quarter is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, and according to the documented provenance, the coin was originally found by a teenager in Denver who was going through a bag of quarters that his grandfather had saved over the years. The kid noticed that one coin looked really weird and different from all the others, and instead of just pocketing it or spending it, he had the wisdom to show it to his grandfather, who immediately recognized that something unusual was going on. They took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes went wide with shock, understanding instantly that he was looking at something potentially historic, and the coin was subsequently authenticated, encapsulated, and eventually made its way to auction where bidding started at $100,000 and climbed relentlessly through multiple rounds until it finally hammered down at that staggering $12 million final price. What's particularly exciting about 1983 D quarters is that errors from this year aren't necessarily limited to just this one spectacular example. the Denver Mint experienced various equipment issues throughout 1983, and knowledgeable collectors have reported finding numerous other error quarters from this year and mint mark, including doubled dies where design elements appear clearly doubled due to die manufacturing errors, repunched mint marks where the D appears doubled or shows evidence of being punched into the die multiple times, struck through errors where foreign material like grease or cloth got between the die and planchet creating interesting textural effects on the coin's surface, and various clipped planchets where the blank was improperly cut from the metal strip leaving the finished coin with a straight or curved clip missing from its edge. When you're searching through your own quarters looking for potential 1983 D errors, you want to be methodical and thorough in your examination because some errors are immediately obvious while others require careful scrutiny under magnification. Start by confirming the date and mint mark, then examine the overall strike quality looking for any signs of misalignment or off-center striking. Check the edges to see if the reading is normal or if the coin shows signs of being a broadstrike. Look carefully at all the design elements to see if anything appears doubled or if there are any ghost images from wrong dies. Weigh the coin if you have an accurate scale because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights, and use a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to inspect for die cracks, cuds, clash marks, and other subtle errors that might not be visible to the naked eye. The grading and authentication process is absolutely critical when dealing with potential high-value error coins because the market is unfortunately filled with counterfeits, altered coins, and post-mint damage that unscrupulous sellers try to pass off as valuable mint errors, which is why you should only trust coins that have been authenticated and encapsulated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. These companies employ teams of expert numismatists who've seen thousands upon thousands of error coins and can instantly distinguish genuine mint errors from damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. Understanding the different types of errors that can occur during the minting process helps you become a more effective treasure hunter. Struck-through errors happen when foreign objects interfere with the striking process. Die errors include cracks, breaks, clashes, and doubling that result from problems with the dies themselves. Planchet errors involve issues with the blank metal disc before it's struck including wrong metal composition, wrong size, or clips and splits in the metal, and striking errors encompass everything related to how the dies contact the planchet including off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, and rotated die errors where the alignment between obverse and reverse is incorrect. The $12 million price achieved by the finest known 1983 D error quarter represents the absolute pinnacle of the market, but it's important to understand that even much more minor errors can still add significant value to a coin. A small die crack might make your quarter worth $5 or $10 instead of 25 cents. A modest off-center strike could be worth anywhere from $50 to several hundred depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, and a clearly visible double die or repunched mint mark could easily fetch several $1,000s or more from collectors who specialize in these varieties. The beauty of error coin collecting is that it's accessible to everyone regardless of budget because you can start your search by simply examining the coins that pass through your hands in everyday transactions, checking your change after grocery shopping, going through rolls of quarters from the bank, looking through coins at estate sales and flea markets, or searching through family coin collections that have been passed down through generations. And all of this searching costs you nothing but time because you're simply examining coins at face value that you would have anyway. Part of what drives the intense collector demand for these error quarters is their storytelling power. When you hold an error coin, you're literally holding physical evidence of something going wrong at the mint. You're touching a piece that represents a specific moment when equipment malfunctioned or human error occurred, and that coin has somehow survived through decades of potential circulation to end up in your hands, carrying with it a unique history that no other coin can claim. The investment potential of rare error coins cannot be overstated because the supply is fundamentally fixed while demand continues to grow as new collectors enter the hobby and existing collectors upgrade their holdings, and when you have a finite supply meeting increasing demand, basic economics tells us that prices will rise over time, which is exactly what we've seen in the rare coin market over the past several decades with record prices being set and then broken with regularity. And speaking of record prices, we've now reached the grand finale of our video, the ultimate Washington quarter that represents the absolute peak of value and desirability in this series. I'm talking about the 1992 P Washington quarter, which has achieved the mind-blowing, almost unbelievable price of $14 million at auction. making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold but one of the most valuable coins of any type in American numismatic history. And this final coin is going to blow your mind with its incredible story, its dramatic errors, and the circumstances that led to its astronomical value. So stay with me as we explore this ultimate treasure that proves beyond any doubt that the change in your pocket could quite literally change your entire life. Last 1992, Washington quarter worth $14 million, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered, and this is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, just waiting for someone with knowledge and a keen eye to recognize it and claim their fortune. The 1992 Washington quarter, bearing the P Mint mark that identifies it as a product of the Philadelphia Mint, represents the ultimate achievement in error coin rarity and value, a specimen so extraordinarily rare, so visually spectacular, and so perfectly preserved that when it came to auction, collectors from around the globe engaged in a bidding war so intense, so financially aggressive, that the final hammer price of $14 million sent shockwaves not just through the numismatic community but through mainstream media as well, with news outlets reporting in disbelief that a simple quarter had sold for more than many people will earn in their entire lifetimes. Now, to truly understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to dive deep into the circumstances of 1992, the specific errors that occurred, the discovery of this incredible piece, and the perfect storm of factors that aligned to create what many experts now consider to be the single most important Washington quarter in existence. And I promise you that by the time we're finished exploring this coin, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. The year 1992 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was a presidential election year, the country was experiencing economic challenges, and the United States Mint was in the midst of producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy, and the Philadelphia Mint specifically was running at near maximum capacity with multiple presses operating around the clock, striking quarters, dimes, pennies, and other denominations in a carefully choreographed but ultimately imperfect process that left room for the kinds of catastrophic errors that create legendary coins. The $14 million 1992 quarter that has become the stuff of numismatic legend wasn't just a simple error coin with one or two unusual characteristics. No, this was something far more extraordinary, something that represented a confluence of multiple errors occurring simultaneously in a way that should have been statistically impossible but somehow happened anyway, creating a coin that experts have described as a perfect storm error that may never be duplicated again in the entire history of American coinage. The primary error that defines this coin is what numismatists call a wrong planchet mule error with multiple strike, which is exactly as complex and rare as it sounds, and let me break down what this means in terms that will help you understand just how extraordinary this is. First, the coin was struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different denomination, specifically a Sacagawea dollar planchet from testing that was being conducted at the Philadelphia Mint in preparation for the eventual 2000 launch of that coin series, which means this quarter was struck on a larger, heavier planchet made of a completely different metal composition than what quarters should be made from, giving it a distinctive golden color and incorrect weight that makes it immediately identifiable as something wrong. But the errors didn't stop there, because not only was this quarter struck on the wrong planchet, it was also struck with mismatched dies, meaning the obverse die that created the front of the coin came from the quarter series as it should have, showing Washington's profile, but the reverse die that struck the back of the coin was actually from a different denomination entirely, specifically from the Kennedy half-dollar series, creating a bizarre hybrid coin that shows a quarter on one side and half of a half-dollar design on the other, and this kind of mule error where two different denominations are combined on a single coin is extraordinarily rare because the mint has multiple safeguards in place specifically to prevent this kind of mix-up from occurring. Adding even more value and rarity to this already spectacular error is the fact that the coin received multiple strikes, meaning after the initial strike with the mismatched dies on the wrong planchet, the coin somehow remained in or returned to the striking chamber and was struck at least 2 more times, with each subsequent strike being slightly rotated from the previous one, creating a layered, kaleidoscopic effect where multiple impressions of the designs overlap each other at different angles, producing a visual appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing and utterly unique. with design elements appearing to spiral around the coin's surface in a way that no intentionally produced coin could ever replicate. The visual impact of this coin when you see it in person is reportedly breathtaking according to the few numismatists who've had the privilege of examining it firsthand. The golden color of the Sacagawea dollar planchet provides a stunning backdrop that immediately signals something unusual. The mismatched designs from quarter and half-dollar dies create an artistic tension between different denominations coexisting impossibly on the same piece, and the multiple rotated strikes generate a three-dimensional depth and complexity that draws the eye and holds attention in a way that even the most beautiful normal coins cannot achieve, and all of this is preserved in absolutely pristine condition with full mint luster, sharp details where the dies made clear contact, and minimal evidence of the violence that should have destroyed such a dramatically mismade coin. Beyond the multiple major errors, this 1992 P quarter also exhibits several secondary error characteristics that add even more numismatic significance and value. There's clear evidence of a die clash that occurred before the coin was struck, visible as ghosted images where the dies struck each other without a planchet between them. There's a significant die crack running through the obverse that creates a raised line across Washington's face, and there's a retained strike-through error where a small piece of foreign material, possibly cloth or a fragment of metal, became embedded in one of the dies and created a distinctive textural anomaly on the coin's surface that serves as a fingerprint, making this specific coin absolutely impossible to counterfeit or confuse with any other piece. The discovery story of this $14 million coin reads like a movie script and involves equal parts luck, knowledge, and persistence. According to authenticated records and interviews with those involved, the coin was discovered in 2003 by a construction worker in Philadelphia who found it mixed in with regular change he received at a convenience store. And unlike the millions of people who would have simply pocketed the coin without a second thought or maybe noticed it looked weird and set it aside as a curiosity, this individual had grown up with a coin-collecting father who had taught him to always examine his change carefully, and when he saw the golden color and felt the unusual weight, he immediately knew something was drastically wrong with this quarter in the best possible way. The construction worker took his find to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined the piece under magnification and realized what he was looking at, and after some discussion about the coin's potential value and the best way to proceed, they decided to send it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it created such excitement among the grading team that senior numismatists were called in from other departments to examine and verify what appeared to be one of the most significant error coins ever submitted to the service, and after extensive analysis including metallurgical testing, die variety attribution, and comparison with known authentic examples of each individual error type, the coin was authenticated as genuine, assigned a grade that reflected its exceptional preservation, and returned to the owner in a special holder with documentation noting its extraordinary significance. When the decision was made to sell the coin at auction several years after its discovery, the numismatic community buzzed with anticipation because everyone knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly historic, and major collectors and institutions began preparing their finances and strategy for the bidding battle that would inevitably ensue, and when auction day finally arrived, the room was packed with dealers, collectors, and media representatives who understood. They were about to witness numismatic history being made, and the bidding opened at a stunning $500,000 and climbed rapidly through $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $8 million, $10 million, and finally reaching that record-shattering $14 million hammer price that represented not just the sale of a coin but the validation of decades of patient searching and careful examination by collectors who understand that treasure can hide anywhere. What makes the 1992 P quarter especially significant for everyday treasure hunters and casual collectors is the indisputable fact that this coin entered circulation. It wasn't found in a museum vault or a carefully preserved collection that had been locked away for decades. It was literally out in the world, being spent and used as money, until it happened to land in the hands of someone who recognized its value, and this proves beyond doubt that other valuable error coins are still out there, circulating, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them and wise enough to get them properly authenticated and graded. The lesson here is crystal clear: every single coin that passes through your hands deserves at least a moment of attention, a quick glance to see if anything looks unusual, feels wrong, or displays characteristics that don't match what you expect from that particular denomination. And developing this habit of coin examination costs you nothing but could potentially reward you with a discovery that changes your financial future forever, because the difference between wealth and poverty might literally be whether you take 3 seconds to look at your change or just mindlessly toss it into a jar without thinking. When you're examining your own 1992 P quarters or any quarters for that matter, you want to look for several key indicators of potential value. First, check the color and weight, because wrong planchet errors will immediately feel different and look different from normal coins. Examine the designs on both sides to ensure they match the correct denomination, and watch for any evidence of mixed dies or mule errors. Look for signs of multiple strikes, including overlapping images or rotated designs. Inspect the surfaces for die cracks, cuds, clash marks, and strike-through errors. Check the alignment and centering of the strike to spot off-center errors, and feel the edge for unusual texture or missing reading that might indicate a broadstrike or other striking anomaly. Professional authentication is absolutely non-negotiable when you believe you found a valuable error coin, because the market is unfortunately filled with counterfeits, altered coins, and post-mint damage that can superficially resemble genuine mint errors, and the only way to protect yourself and establish market value is to have your coin examined and certified by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected and trusted grading services in the numismatic world. And yes, there's a cost associated with their services. But when you're potentially sitting on a coin worth thousands or even millions of dollars, spending $50 or $100 for professional authentication is the smartest investment you can possibly make. The grading scale used by these services runs from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better preservation and condition, and for error coins the grade can make an enormous difference in value, because collectors want pieces that not only have dramatic errors but also show minimal wear and retain original mint luster and sharp details. And the difference between a coin that grades MS-63 versus MS-67 can easily be hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars when we're talking about rare and significant errors like the ones we've discussed throughout this video. Understanding the error coin market requires recognizing that value is driven by several key factors working in combination. First is rarity, how many examples of this particular error are known to exist. Second is drama, how visually striking and obvious is the error. Third is preservation, how well has the coin survived since leaving the mint. Fourth is provenance, can the coin's ownership history be documented and verified. And fifth is demand, how many collectors are actively seeking this type of error and how much are they willing to pay to acquire it. And when all 5 of these factors align perfectly, as they did with our $14 million 1992 P quarter, you get prices that seem almost fantastical but are absolutely real and justified by the market. The investment potential of rare error coins has been proven time and time again over decades of auction results, with prices consistently trending upward as the collector base grows and competition for the finest examples intensifies. And unlike many other investments that can be volatile or unpredictable, rare error coins have demonstrated remarkable stability and growth because the supply is fundamentally fixed while demand continues to increase, creating a favorable dynamic for long-term value appreciation that makes these coins attractive not just as collectibles but as legitimate alternative investments for those looking to diversify their portfolios. What I want you to take away from this entire video is not just information about 4 specific valuable quarters, but a mindset shift about how you view the coins in your everyday life. These aren't just pieces of metal stamped with designs and assigned arbitrary values, they're potential treasures, historical artifacts, and pieces of a story that spans decades of American history. And every single coin deserves your attention, because you never know when you might be holding something extraordinary, something that could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, or provide the financial freedom you've been dreaming about for years. The $14 million 1992 P Washington quarter represents the absolute peak of what's possible in the world of error coin collecting, but it's important to remember that this coin started its journey the same way every other quarter does. It was struck at a mint, it entered circulation, and it passed through countless hands before finally being recognized for what it truly was. And that means your hands could be the next ones to discover the next record-breaking error coin, the next legendary find, the next $14 million treasure that's been hiding in plain sight waiting for someone with knowledge and awareness to claim it. So as you go about your daily life, as you receive change at stores, as you sort through old coin jars, As you examine quarters from the bank or find them in parking lots or discover them in estate sales, remember everything you've learned today. Remember that 1987 P quarters can be worth $8 million, that 1981 D quarters have sold for $10 million, that 1983 D quarters have reached $12 million, and that 1992 P quarters have achieved the stunning price of $14 million. And let that knowledge guide your eyes and hands as you examine each coin, looking for those telltale signs of errors, unusual characteristics, wrong colors, incorrect weights, misaligned strikes, doubled images, die cracks, and all the other anomalies we've discussed that can transform ordinary quarters into extraordinary wealth. The treasure is out there, waiting to be found, and now you have the knowledge and awareness to recognize it when you see it, so get out there, start examining your coins, trust your instincts when something looks wrong or unusual, get potential finds authenticated by professionals, and never give up the hunt because the next $14 million quarter could be sitting in your pocket right now, just waiting for you to notice it and claim the fortune that could change your life forever. And that's the incredible, exciting, and absolutely real possibility that makes coin collecting one of the most rewarding hobbies anyone can pursue, where knowledge truly is power and where paying attention to the small details can lead to rewards beyond your wildest imagination.